The Rings of Power, the show that redefines television, with such brilliant writing that I rather preferred if it had been a silent film. A show which fails the fan and the general audience in equal measure. So we start off with Arondir being dragged through an orc camp after he got captured in the last episode. While he is being dragged through the camp, he realizes where all the bodies from Horden actually went. While the orcs get some restraints and chain him up by the ankle. And nothing screams allegory more than this. So moving on, he sees the rest of the elves from the watchtower has also been captured. How? When? Don't know. Don't ask questions. Next we are back with Galadriel and she wakes up in fright. As in from the horror of the last scene. Yeah, don't worry, the audiences are equally horrified. So not Sauron, Halbrand gives her food and she immediately thinks if it's poisoned. Yeah, I wish. So they go up to the deck and we finally get to see Elendil. He remarks that it is indeed strange time to find an elder on his ship. And at this point I was like, hey, how do you know? Did you see her pointy ears under her hair while she was sleeping? Huh? So Galadriel asks what ship it is and where they are heading. Elendil refuses to answer, saying he is obliged to deliver them to his better, and they will answer all her questions. And so begins the dreadful writing.
To what port do we sail?
Yeah, since he has refused, let's ask him again.
See for yourself. We're nearly there.
Yeah, no matter how many times you ask, I'm not gonna tell you.
Nearly where?
So let's ask him again.
Home.
Alright, I'll give you that one, you cheeky little devil. So Galadriel notices her dagger is with Elendil, and at this point I was almost certain she was ready to take on the whole crew. And believing her in this show, it wouldn't have been too far-fetched. But surprisingly, she restrains herself. As the ship starts to enter port, we see a beacon tower lit up. This could definitely be a recall to the beacons from the Return of the King. And Halbrand asks Galadriel, what is this place? And she replies that it can be only one place, the Land of the Star, the island kingdom of Numenor. And we get a beautiful shot of Numenor. We see another lit beacon tower and a shot of the whole city of Ar-Menellos, which had quite a resemblance to the city of Minas Tirith. We also see a welcoming statue which could possibly be of Eärendil, the father of Elrond and Elros, the first king of Numenor. Halbrand is quite surprised and asks as to when did men like him build kingdoms like this. So Galadriel puts him in his place by saying these aren't men like you. His people stood with Morgoth while these men stood with the elves, and as a reward the Valar granted them this island. Galadriel also mentions that much has changed since old, as elves are no longer welcome here. This refers to the King's Men, the faction which has the majority of the people and power in Numenor, who turned away from the Valar, opposite to the secret minority faction of the Faithful, in which Elendil's people belong to. Now there are a lot of complications weaved around the history of Numenor, which will be revealed slowly, I believe, through the entire season. So anyways, as we move on, Halbrand pauses in front of a smithy for a moment, which could definitely be another subtle hint at Anatar. As Elendil leads them to the Queen Regent, Halbrand suggests it's better to set aside history for a moment and to show some restraint, and not antagonize these people, which seems like a good advice as it would require, in Gandalf's own words,
If we are to be successful, this will need to be handled with tact and respect, and no small degree of charm.
and which I'm sure Lady Galadriel has plenty of. Psst, who am I kidding? This is Warrior Galadriel, Scourge of the Orcs. We see Miriel, who's acting as Queen Regent in the stead of his father, King Tar-Palantir, addresses Galadriel as an elf, just like Durin did with Elrond, and asks to name herself. So Galadriel absolutely lays it on her, Daenerys style.
Galadriel of the Noldor. daughter of the Golden House of Finarfin, commander of the northern armies of High King Gil-galad.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
She kind of demands a ship and passage back to Middle-earth, to which Pharazôn, currently Chancellor, remarks that it has been generations since a Númenórean ship has been permitted to make such a journey on an elf's behalf. Now, knowing their history, there is a lot of politics and sentiments wrapped around this issue, and you have certainly made no point how it will benefit them in any way. So instead of being courteous or diplomatic, she goes absolutely batshit on them, by tersely remarking that it is because of the elves they were provided with this island. They could surely provide with some planks and rudder. So not only she belittled their workmanship, she points out that everything was provided by the elves, so in reality everything belongs to her. Yes, she is in desperate need of their help, and being obnoxious and arrogant little twat is the right way to do it. So Miriel remarks that they were not given anything, they paid for it with their blood. To which Galadriel remarks,
Blood be the price of passage I will pay, but one way or another I will depart.
Yes, I'll take you all on, you and the whole island, 'cause I'm Galadriel of the Noldor, first of her name, commander of the northern armies, and the scourge of the orcs, and the swimmer of the sundering seas. My narcissism and arrogance and sense of entitlement knows no bounds. I have not 1 ounce of wisdom in my whole body. This is what the writers think a strong woman should be. With heroes like this, I would rather root for the villains. So Halbrand jumps in, seeing what an absolute moron his companion is, before they try to send Galadriel off to the chopping block, and tries to de-escalate the situation by asking permission to stay on the island for a few days, while they weigh in their request. So Galadriel says she will not be made prisoner. Yeah, like you have a choice, you dumb cow. So to that Pharazôn says, nah, you will be Númenor's guest, while the guards come to escort them out. Halbrand gives Elendil a vague hug of gratitude, so as to steal Galadriel's dagger from him. So either Elendil seems to know what's happening and playing along, or he is a complete imbecile. So Halbrand and Galadriel have a bit of an exchange, to what Galadriel says,
You leapt into the sea to save one life. I seek to save many.
I'm sorry, what? You're not trying to save anyone, darling. You are out on a vendetta and definitely don't care about anyone apart from yourself. Amidst all that, in a god-awful moment, Halbrand returns the dagger to Galadriel, which felt like the writers are really trying to play into the romantic relationship between these two. And all it does is make me cringe. And no wonder they never mentioned Celeborn. So Miriel and Pharazôn takes counsel together, where Pharazôn says it's better to resolve this matter quickly, to which Miriel says it is but one elf, to which Pharazôn has a similar dialogue as in Gandalf from the Two Towers,
Coming of Merry and Pippin will be like the falling of small stones that starts an avalanche.
and replies with, an avalanche can start with 1 stone, and he would rather not invite back the king's cloud back overhead. As they talk about Elendil, we cut to Isildur, who's a cadet in the Númenórean navy, learning the ways of the sea. For a moment he gets distracted by an island, and we hear a female voice calling out his name. Yeah, no reference there. The whole sequence is rather pointless. We get some more bullshit bumper sticker dialogues like, the sea is always right. Yeah, I have a feeling that this will keep popping up the entire season every time we are in Númenor. And we also get introduced to his sister Eärien, another pointless original character who actually does nothing the entire episode. And we are back in Armenelos, where Miriel and Elendil are talking about the white tree of Nimloth. She keeps prodding him the entire scene to find out if he is one of the faithful. Miriel asks him about the meaning of his name, to which Elendil responds, in Quenya it means one who loves the stars, and when pressed he mentions it could also mean elf friend. So they go on for a bit like this, as Miriel mentions that even though no else has been welcome on their shores since the reign of her grandfather's great-grandfather, and yet Elendil broke that precedent by bringing her. And we get to see and hear some of the best award-winning dialogues.
It was the sea that put her in my path, and the sea is always right.
Oof. At this point, I can almost feel the depth of the writing.
The sea cannot commit treason.
We are so glad we spent $1 billion to get this amazing piece of screenwriting. So eventually, Miriel tasks Elendil to watch over Galadriel and provides a sword, which many were saying, but I don't believe is Narsil at all. Back at the slave camp, we get some more dialogues stating the obvious, because the writers think that the audience are morons like them, who can't work out anything on their own. So anyways, we get to know that the orcs are searching for something, maybe a weapon, for their leader, Adar, which being the title of the episode we still haven't seen, and that the orcs revere it, and Morgoth has a successor. Possibly they could be searching for the Morgul blade that Theo has. So Arondir is quite confused as to why the orcs would refer to their leader in an elvish name. The Watchwarden believes this could possibly be Sauron, as he had many names. He suggests looking for an opportunity to get above this peaks and make for the nearest tree line. If anyone makes it, they could return with a force and wipe the orcs like salt from a table. Yeah, I don't get that reference as well. Anyways, after a confrontation about cutting down a tree on their way, one of the orcs offers them water, because they showed strength. No, nothing suspicious about that. So the elves quite hesitantly share the drink one by one, when suddenly the orc cuts one of the elves' throat while he was drinking. And to be honest, the amount of chip that is shown in the scene is smaller than the cut I get while shaving. So Arondir is mad and says he will cut down the tree and takes it upon himself to cut down the massive tree with the makeshift bone axe. This again feels like a recall moment from the Fellowship of the Ring, where Frodo says he will carry the ring to Mordor. And as the camera pans around, we get the view of the destruction caused by the orcs around them. Meanwhile in Numenor, Galadriel has escaped, and she is so thick with plot armor, she decides to leap across the guards over their faces, Prince of Persia style, and doesn't even wait for them to actually pass. Now previously everyone was looking at her when she arrived at the port, but right now no one pays her a shred of attention, even when her ears are not hidden, because the plot wants it that way. So she is about to steal a boat and gets caught by Elendil, who states the futility of her attempt. He also mentions that he has been tasked by the Queen Regent to watch over her, so that she doesn't cause any further trouble. So Galadriel goes back to threatening him. To that, Elendil retorts that he can call to her minders. She says,
Who is this mortal who speaks to me as if he has the slightest idea who I am?
over in this part of the world is the same as saying, do you know who my father is? Yeah, sweetheart, we all know who you are. You're just a miserable, self-indulgent, entitled little bitch, who, even living for thousands of years, hasn't a lick of sense between her ears. So Elendil says that he has a daughter who runs fast and a son who runs blind, and she has the eyes resembling both, which again the writers think conveys deep meaning, but is absolute bosh. Galadriel says anywhere is better than here, where everyone hates her. With personality like that, I wonder why. So Elendil replies in Quenya that not all hate her. Galadriel is surprised that he speaks Elvish. Elendil reveals that many speaks the tongue from where he comes from, and it is still taught in their Hall of Lore, and also carved on statues throughout the city. So they take a horse ride back to the Hall of Lore, and apparently Galadriel likes horses, and someone found out the slow motion setting on their camera. So we get some alarming uber cringe Galadriel smiley face shot in the slow-mo. Meanwhile, Halbrand goes back to the smithy, and he says he will do anything, shove coal or make an anchor, just give him a chance. He really wants to make something because his Anatar sense is tingling. But the smith says he can't forge anything in Numenor unless he earns a guild's crest. So Halbrand goes to have some seafood, where the man at the bar tries to goad him by saying, "You're eating our food, you're drinking our ale, what will you do next? Take our lands, take our trades?" Yeah, I get the analogy. Stop hitting my head with it at every turn. And why does everything feels like Game of Thrones? This does not look like Lord of the Rings at all. Yeah, Numenorians see themselves better than the rest of the men in Middle-earth, but it doesn't have to be shown this way. Why is everyone a bully? And we have seen that from the first episode itself, where the elven children was acting like a bunch of bullies towards Galadriel. Anyways, getting back on point, Halbrand switches to his nice guy demeanor and buys beer for everyone, and gets them to let their guard down while he can nick one of their crests. I don't know where he got all those Numenorian coin, but who cares, don't ask questions. Or what he was going to do with that crest, since everyone knows him, he is an outsider. And definitely the smith will know that he has never earned it within the next 20 minutes. Yeah, don't ask questions, just watch. Just consume. So the guys at the bar knows he stole the crest and jumps him in an alley. So Halbrand decides to go all John Wick on them and absolutely annihilates them. At this point I wasn't sure whether I was watching Lord of the Rings or a show of Game of Thrones. So eventually the guards turn up and take him away. We cut to the Hall of Lore and Galadriel draws the Mark of Mordor for Elendil so that they could search the archives. We find out that the Hall of Lore was actually built by Elros, Elrond's brother. Elendil mentions that because of the king Tar Palantir, the archives has still not been torn down, as he is loyal to the elves, for which he has been forced from his throne and confined to his tower, and exiled in his own kingdom. Yeah dude, I'm not so sure that's how exile works. So anyways, the archivist returns with an account of a human spy retrieved from an enemy dungeon, and Galadriel finally works out that it's the Mark of Mordor. Turns out there is also a plan in the event of Morgoth's defeat to create a land by his successor where evil will not only endure but thrive. Yeah, you had this information for about thousands of years and just now finding out? Shut up, don't ask questions. And we are back with the Harfoots, who are doing God knows what and chanting nobody goes off the trail and nobody walks alone, which most certainly isn't true, and we will find out soon enough. So Nori's parents talk about how the foot injury isn't looking too good for the family just before migration. The writers really wants everyone to believe that the hobbits literally have no extra hands in the entire camp. They will absolutely leave you for dead if you fall behind. What happened to nobody goes off the trail and nobody walks alone? I'm telling you, the Harfoots are a real bunch of savages. Even a wolf pack keeps their sick and weak in the center. So Nori nicks Sadok's star map with the help of Poppy. Next we get kind of a prior migration and remembrance party, which looks awful similar to Bilbo's birthday party from the Fellowship. And things take a grim turn when Sadok starts reading out the names of the people they actually left behind during migration, and the ways they died in. All that nobody goes off the trail and nobody walks alone thing was utter crap. We run from everything and we will definitely leave you behind to die horribly without even a second thought. And it's absolutely disgusting, as everyone knows who they are going to leave behind next. And they say it like it's deep and heartbreaking. No, it's not. It's horrible.
We could not wait for them.
No, you chose to leave them behind.
We wait for you.
No, you didn't wait. That's why they died. These Harfoots are barbaric and horrible people. Anyways, in between this, the stranger shows up, probably to munch on some more delicious snails, and finds his constellation among a bunch of maps, and decides to hold the paper right over the fire. Apparently he is not used to fire that actually burns stuff, so he starts panicking and decides to run through the camp, scaring the Harfoots along the way and accidentally uttering Nori's name in front of them. Upon asking if he has heard of a being falling from the stars, Sadok mentions he has heard of a being turning into a star, but not the other way around, which again is a reference to the story of Eärendil. But as to why would a hobbit know the tale, I have no idea. Turns out that the punishment for breaking the rule and bringing an outsider into their camp is being decaravanned. Yeah, you already can't carry your cart and we were going to leave you anyway, But if we tell you we are leaving you behind, that even makes a bigger impact. Who actually writes this stuff? So Sadok says as Nori is young, her family can stay, but remain at the back of the caravan. So basically nothing has changed. They were going to leave them behind since they can't carry their cart on their first place. Yeah, I'm rethinking as to who actually the real villains are in this show. So we are back in Numenor with Elendil's family, and Isildur is kind of a fanboy for Galadriel. He mentions Galadriel, the scourge of the orcs, when we have not seen her killing even one orc. Anyways, the whole scene is rather pointless. Guess they just wanted to do a family soap opera moment and whip out some more of that brilliant screenwriting. Galadriel visits Halbrand, who is locked up, and shows a mark which came up from the archives which matches the one from Halbrand's pouch. He says that he got it off a dead man, and Galadriel doesn't buy it. She says it is the mark of the king of the Southlands, and they don't have a king because the king is him. And many ages ago, a man bearing that mark united all the tribes of the Southlands under one banner, and that he could do the same and go against the evil that is plaguing his lands. Halbrand counters to that, saying that it was his ancestor that swore a blood oath to Morgoth, and his family that lost the war. It's like the writers can't make up whether he is going to be Sauron or knock off Aragorn. To which Galadriel replies, and it was her family that started it, and theirs was no chance meeting, and it was the work of something greater. Yeah, I want to say the name of Eru Ilúvatar, but can't cause a rights issue, so I'll keep hinting at it. She asks Halbrand to come with her to Middle-earth so that they can both redeem their bloodlines. Yes, come with me, and you can be my new Celeborn. Together we can take on the whole Middle-earth. I can understand why Halbrand needs to redeem his bloodline, but as to why Galadriel needs to as well, I have no idea. Then we see Miriel talking to someone who is hinted to be her father, saying the moment they feared is here as the elf has arrived. We still don't know what actually happened to his father, whether he is alive or in a coma or anything else. So we return to the bloodthirsty Harfoots, where the migration is already underway, and the Brandyfoots are struggling to keep up with the rest of the caravan. And we actually see a bunch of Harfoots just loafing about, but not even lifting a finger to help. Turns out the stranger were inside their cart, which was adding to the weight. So Nori came up with the idea to have the stranger push the cart around so they don't get left behind by the homicidal maniacs. Next we are back in the slave camp, the elf camp, and the elves decide that now is the time to fight the orcs. We see some acrobatics and some very dodgy action sequences, and after one of the prisoners get an axe in the back trying to escape, Arondir jumps up and breaks the shade to expose the orcs to the sunlight. So the orcs have a release the Kraken moment and unleashes a warg, which to be honest looks like an overgrown chihuahua, and the way it acted reminded me of Taz. So the warg rips into a few of them, and Arondir does some weird jump and traps the overgrown chihuahua within the roots of the tree, while the watchwarden frees himself and makes a run for it. As the warg breaks free and chases after him, Arondir kills it by flinging the spear at it. As he climbs over the pit, he sees the watchwarden is just standing there riddled with arrows. Arondir is pulled back into the pit where an orc is about to behead him, but stopped, as he will be brought before Adar. So slowly tension starts to build as we are going to see Adar, after whom the episode is named. And we get the final shot of the episode with an out of focus shot of Adar. Yeah, the episode is named Adar and we never get to see Adar. Just like the entire plot, it actually leads to nowhere. So we are 3 episodes down and the show is still going on with more exposition. It is boring and the plot still haven't moved anywhere. And we are almost halfway in the season. And at the pace it is going, I believe the Rings of Power will be created in season 3 or 4. There is still no mention of Celeborn or Círdan. And the only thing we learned in this episode is Galadriel is an obnoxious, condescending, entitled, egotistical, insufferable little bitch. She is the scourge on mankind and elfkind along with the orcs. Yeah, maybe apart from Hallbrand and horses. I don't know, she likes horses. The Harfoots are a bunch of bloodthirsty little savages. The writing is terrible. Dialogues filled with pseudo intellectualism. It has all the same issues from the previous episodes. We don't know who exactly the show is meant for. They explain nothing to the general audience and show nothing to the actual fans. The timeline has been totally destroyed, and the lore has been reduced to just member berries. The Numenorian armors looks terrible. All of the costume design looks very generic. We moved on from Roman toga for the elves to the Viking for the dwarves, and now we have moob armor for the Numenorians. We are 3 hours into the show and it still feels nothing like Lord of the Rings. It just moves on from one mystery box to another mystery box without anything actually happening. No one apart from the main characters counts to anything. They are there to make the main characters look good or just become meat shield. Yeah, it has a few great shots and scenes and that's it. It's a pile of shit with a vacation postcard on it.